Hi folks, Matt McSpirit here from Dell, back at Ignite in the rather glamorous backstage speaker area at Ignite. So Lior has kindly sneaked me in here to mingle with all the speakers from Microsoft Ignite. And we're here to talk about some of the hybrid announcements that have been made in the last day or so at Ignite. So Lior, why don't you take us through your perspective on some of those big announcements, and we'll get into some useful readiness topics as well where you can learn a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that there are a few things that are happening. To me, there were a couple of things that were, or three things that were outstanding. The first thing was auto-manage when GA.
Yep.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is not just because yet another product went GA. It's really because I think that long-term strategy when it comes to how we are thinking about Azure Arc-enabled servers and how do we think about governance and compliance at scale, that's really kind of the path moving forward.
Right.
So that was one thing. Another thing was AKS on X, which is Windows Server, Azure Stack HCI, already there. You're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Windows IoT, which was the demo that I did, and it's like
the AKS Lite stuff.
And all these things that are kind of gelling together towards a much more mature hybrid story. I love to see that happening. So that's awesome. And the last thing is kind of a funky one in the sense of why I'm bringing this up, because I'm not a commercial guy. I'm an engineer and all that. But to me, the hybrid benefits, the Azure hybrid benefits that is extended to to AKS, that's a big one. I heard a lot of people talking about this. I had multiple people just kind of reaching out asking me about this.
Yeah.
This this notion of extending the software assurance policies that customers got
on Windows Server.
Windows Server, right, and now extended towards AKS and Azure Stack HCI, and being able to, with no additional cost, just going to do that.
It's a significant saving.
It is a significant saving, and it's also something that has been a blocker for a lot of customers that we were talking to, because they were telling us, I'm already invested. I have million Windows data center licenses.
Right.
How can I take advantage of that with Azure Stack HCI? And now you can, really, with no additional cost.
So you save the subscription fee that you would have paid previously for Azure Stack HCI, the $10 per physical core. As long as your systems are covered by that Windows Server with SA, that cost is eliminated, and you can take advantage of the Azure Stack HCI layer being your on-metal software that gives you all of those modern hybrid infrastructure benefits that Azure Stack HCI is unique for. And then from there, the AKS pieces, where you've got the ability to bring AKS on Azure Stack HCI down, and normally you would have that subscription fee associated with your worker node vCPUs for your Kubernetes clusters. That's eliminated as well. So you're getting a very low entry cost and really protecting and maximizing the investment that you've made in Windows Server plus software assurance. And there's a ton of other SA benefits outside of this as well, but these are the key ones that have been focused in on at the conference.
Right, exactly. I'm excited about this because the way I'm looking at this is that, I'm looking at growth, I'm looking at scale, I'm looking at how many people are adopting the things that we're working so hard to develop.
Yep.
And, a lot of the time you can build the most awesome product in the world, but when there is a commercial blocker to it or a commercial challenge, when we are unblocking those challenges, that's where, I'm looking forward to see the uptick.
Right. And speaking of enabling people and getting people enthused about how you use some of these capabilities, tell us about the Azure Arc Jumpstart and all the work that's gone into that to enable people to really learn and experience some of these hybrid technologies.
Yeah, I mean, for people, and again, I had people reaching out this week as well, for people that are really in that space of Azure Arc and hybrid and all that, the number one challenge that at least I see when it comes to getting started is the fact that Azure Arc, by definition, this touches everything that is outside of Azure.
Yep.
Now, in order for us to provide some knowledge around that, we actually need to create some collateral. So about 3 years ago, I started a project called Azure Arc Jumpstart, and I had a few good people joining me into this project. And what we did is we basically created a huge set of collaterals, automations, in order for people to get going with Azure Arc.
Yep.
Also, on infrastructure that that is not Azure.
Yeah.
So that was really
GCP,
Amazon, GCP, VMware. You have, and it's not just the infrastructure type. It's also how do you go by and deploy that. So you can see automations like not just ARM. You see Bicep, you see Terraform, you see Vagrant, you see like Ansible. You see a lot of things, just good old PowerShell scripts, right?
Yeah.
But you see a lot of things there that are meshing together into a cohesive, automated platform in order for people to get going with.
Right. So the Jumpstart is really there to streamline how you can experience some of these technologies in a guardrailed kind of sandbox type experience, and but it covers a breadth of technologies, whether it's Arc-enabled servers, Kubernetes, it covers data services and more. So there's lots of stuff there. So that's available. There's a lovely front end for it. What's Azure Arc Jumpstart.io, the website, and then it's backed by GitHub. So naturally, we encourage contributions from the community, right?
Yeah, as of today, we have around 60 contributors, and the team is getting bigger, and we're seeing a lot of interest. We recently introduced also our GitHub discussion, so people can come and just have a conversation with the team, just kind of what they want to see, beyond just the, hey, I want this, I want that, just really having a meaningful conversation so we can prioritize accordingly, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Awesome. So if you are running on your Dell integrated system for Azure Stack HCI, which hopefully you are, you're running Azure Stack HCI, you've maybe got an AKS cluster deployed, integrate that with Arc. There's a lot of learning you could take away to explore that experience using the Azure Arc Jumpstart. So lots of cool stuff there. But that brings us on to our next topic, which is how can we experience more in a sandbox type environment, specifically for Azure Stack HCI and AKS and some of these other pieces. So tell us about HCIBox.
Yeah, so HCIBox is really the evolution that we started about a year and a half ago at our previous conference, at previous Ignite. Back then we introduced something called RBox 2.0, which brought the flavor notion. And RBox 2.0 brought also the idea of how do we basically mesh all the HCI related things into the same experience that you have with RBox today.
Right.
So what we did this week is we announced HCIBox in public preview. And HCIBox is basically a way for you to deploy a full-blown Azure Stack HCI 2-node cluster on your own Azure subscription. You don't need anything else.
Right. So inside Azure.
Inside Azure, and it's based obviously on nested virtualization. But the cool thing about that is that it really a one-click deployment in the sense of that you deploy the bicep template, which is the only method that we support in public preview, but we are expanding this to ARM and Terraform.
Right.
So you go by and you deploy that, and basically what you're getting eventually is you're getting a full-blown HCI environment, which include also AKS on Azure Stack HCI. Obviously, everything is Arc-enabled, both the nodes, the HCI nodes, and also we have image gallery that gets spin up for you, resource bridge, Active Directory, so we can support all the authentication, authorization, and just kind of everything together, and everything spin up in about 3 to 4 hours. You get in a full-blown environment.
Okay, so for clarity then, so previously there was ArcBox, which was a set of Azure resources to help evaluate all of those different Arc capabilities that we've touched on. The evolution of that now, in addition to ArcBox, is HCIBox. So you deploy with a bicep template today. It deploys a single VM, quite a big VM is required.
Right.
And inside that VM is a number of Azure Stack HCI nodes, 2, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Domain controller, management infrastructure running Windows Admin Center.
Yep.
Kubernetes gets deployed on top of that nested Azure Stack HCI cluster. So there's lots of stuff going on there, and it's all contained within that single sandbox VM.
Exactly. Okay. And all this integration is meshed together. So again, honestly, we wanted to make sure that we're giving you the path of less resistance. And for us, just being able to deploy this is super critical because, and this, just kind of coming from Dell and all, how everyone are talking about supply chain and, post-pandemic and all of that. And for us to provide such a collateral that is designed for enablement of customers, partners, POCs, demos. So keeping the ball rolling while you're still waiting for your production hardware and blinking lights, that was something that was super critical for us to provide, and that's what we are sharing with the community now.
Right, and so today with HCIBox, once it's deployed, you can immerse yourself in predominantly those kind of day 2 operations, like creating new VMs, deploying Kubernetes clusters, deploying applications through GitOps and Azure policy for compliance. There's a whole host of things, but you don't have to worry about all of that complex setup. Now in the future, obviously, you'll be able to evolve HCIBox to enable people to I want to try and deploy AKS HCI and see what it looks like and go through that step. So, but now it does it all for you, which is awesome, especially if you just want to focus in on those day two operations.
Yeah, we definitely taking it's one of the core design principles of the Jumpstart, which is modular Lego kind of coding way of doing things. So everything is modular. You can pick and choose, or we will enable kind of the pick and choose method of what is it that you can deploy. So you can have a fully automated experience, but if you choose so, you can have a semi-automated experience, so you can also kind of touch things with your own hands.
Yeah, go and figure out how to use those, which is great, because that gives you that immersion of deploying those pieces, but also then the day two if you prefer. And, and from a cost perspective, it's the cost of the running VM, which is a sizable VM, but if you finish with it, if you've done some testing and you're all done, clean it up, delete that VM, and your charges will stop.
Yeah, and that's really kind of the one of the core principles that we don't want to. The goal is not to touch your production, but also have something that is ephemeral enough so you can just, basically nuke it and move on. Again, move on with life. So it's not designed to. I mean, it can, but if you want to pay for the entire month or run it for months, you're going to pay for that. That's obvious because you're running on Azure infrastructure. But it really designed, the main use case here is that for this to be ephemeral and just kind of go with that.
Awesome. So all the things that you've heard about at Ignite, from Azure Arc, for Azure Stack HCI, AKS, all of that stuff you can validate in this HCIBox, which is awesome. It's a great way to just lower that on-ramp to experiencing some of those things. And there's great documentation that accompanies it. It's not just deploy and then you're on your own. There's great documentation in the repo. And as it's GitHub-based, you want to contribute, I guess people can just contribute in the same way as before.
Even if you're following a spelling mistake, we'll accept every contribution.
No judgment.
No judgment. Even if this is what this is all about. I mean, at the end of the day, the Jumpstart, has grown tremendously. We have, I think, last time that I looked at the data, we have more than 75K views in the past 6 months.
Wow.
So, it grown tremendously, but it's just because of the fact that community is coming together around this hybrid story that we're trying to tell.
Yeah, and if there's scenarios that you don't see there today, make some suggestions, start the discussion, engage with the team, and they're going to help you build the scenarios that you're looking for. So with that, thanks Lior, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having
me. We'll post all the links in the session notes in the description, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.